Debt is bad and you should probably avoid it at all costs. Well, that's at least what our fake teachers taught us at school, and then everyone else around us that didn't understand how money actually worked. In this video, I want to share with you my thoughts around interest only versus interest plus principal repayments, what sort of structure would work best, and why there are so many investors doing the exact same thing. That's what I'm going to share with you guys in this video. If you're interested, keep watching. Hey guys, my name's Ravi and welcome back to Personal Finance with Ravi Sharma. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button because I talk about real estate, cryptocurrency, and financial freedom. If you are after more daily updates, not just around Australian property, but NFTs, crypto, as well as the share market, then definitely go join my Patreon group. The Mastermind is where you get access to my entire brain every single day talking about a bunch of random things. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description. Now let's turn back the clock about 9 years ago when I started investing in real estate for the first time. I got told that, hey,
you should pay off your debt. It's the worst thing ever.
And knowing the fact that I just got taught that at school for the last 12 or 13 years, going to uni as well, everyone talked about the same thing. So I thought,
yeah, that's probably the right way to approach it.
I went with a principal and interest mortgage. Now at the time, the broker was actually telling me that you should probably consider an interest only loan if you're going to invest in property. And I asked him why. And he said at the time,
well, you're gonna have more cash flow and what you're trying to do is build up your asset portfolio. So instead of paying down debt, you should probably take on more debt.
That's loosely what he said. I can't remember the exact conversation 9 years ago, but I still went against that and I went with my gut at the time because I had believed that debt was bad. I wanted to pay it off as quickly as possible. But what happened 12 months later when I was reassessing my strategy, getting more educated around the entire space and learning from successful people, because remember, success leaves clues, I started realizing a big trend. I realized that a lot of investors that had multiple properties in their portfolio were all doing one thing, which was going interest only. And I never understood why until that day. And since that day, I've always gone and opted for an interest only loan. Now, is this going to suit everyone? And can I give you advice on this sort of thing? No, I can't, right? Although once upon a time I did have my mortgage broking license, I'm definitely talking to you as a YouTuber here. I want to share what my experience has been so far, and you should definitely go and reach out to a credit professional. So a mortgage broker or a lender, and if you need help in pointing you in the right direction, definitely email me, it's in the pinned comments. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of this video, you should probably watch all the way through because I'm going to share with you a bonus way as to how you can go and grow your property portfolio even faster. So definitely stay tuned for that. Now, in order for us to assess what the difference is, we need to assess what each one is. Now, an interest-only loan, or IO, is basically you paying the cost of borrowing. When you take out a mortgage, you have to pay a cost on that, which is the interest. So in effect, if I took out a 100K loan and I just decided to pay interest only, I'm not paying that 100K down. It's just the cost of borrowing. So it's going to the bank and saying, I want 100K, and the bank says, well, you can take my 100K, but you're gonna have to pay me some income, and that is the interest. The opposite pretty much works for when you go and deposit money in, say, a term deposit to earn some interest. You go to the bank and say, here's 100K, but give me some interest, give me some income, and the bank says, no problems. And that's when they give you some interest as well, which often is a lot lower than what the mortgage rate is, but that's a whole different story. Principal and interest, or P&I loans, are basically you going out and paying your monthly repayment, but it's made up of two components. One is the principal amount, and two is the interest only component. Although I've taken out 100K worth of debt, I have the intention to pay this down in 30 years time. So what I'm gonna do is every month when I make a payment, I wanna pay you the cost of borrowing, which is the interest, but I also wanna put a portion there towards paying this down. So in year one, it could be 100K, but then in year two, it could be 99K, and the year after that at 98K, and so on. So if the whole idea is to pay down your debt at some point, it would make a lot of sense to go interest plus principal, right? Straight from the word go. Well, that would make sense. However, most brokers and lenders are all suggesting that you should probably go interest only when building out your portfolio. I'm gonna explain why. This again comes down to your strategy. You need to understand where you are in your strategy. And if you have no idea what I mean by where you are in the strategy, you need to book a strategy session with me so we can break this down for you. In the first part of your strategy, what you're looking at doing is you're trying to grow your asset base. You're trying to build that machine, as I like to call it. So in this phase, what you're trying to do is say, well, I could go out there and buy homes with my own cash, or I can use a component of my cash plus the bank's cash, which is going to be a lot more. I'll pay them the interest. But what I'm able to do with this is now purchase a property. When that property goes up in value, I can then take out some more equity, use that as a deposit to purchase my next property. If you've lost me and have no idea what I'm talking about, definitely go check out this video, a detailed breakdown of how equity works in a home and how you can use it as deposits for your next purchase. While the main focus is to build the asset base here now, there is a focus or priority later when you go into debt reduction strategies as well as accelerated debt reduction. So when you are going interest only, your repayments are actually a lot lower than if you were going interest plus principal. Now I'm going to tell you straight up front, P&I is probably the best thing you could do if you're someone that's not very disciplined. The reason I say that is because I treat it like forced savings. If I have to go out and say make a monthly repayment, and some of that is going towards paying off my principal, that just means I'm creating further equity positions for myself, which in turn is just me paying off my own principal. And that means forced savings. If you're no good with budgeting, you're probably not even buying property, so we're probably past that point now. So let's look at interest-only loans. You're only paying for the cost of borrowing. So as soon as you think about that, you're like, after 30 years, I'm still gonna have the same amount of loan. Like, why would I care about that? And therein lies the biggest secret. Because 30 years ago, if you bought a property here in Sydney, it would be very different to what it is now. And let's just break this down with some real numbers. The average home in Sydney costed $350,000 30 years ago. But now in Sydney, the average price is 1.05 million. So almost 3x the original price. Now, why this is important is because if you just went ahead and say purchased one property in Sydney 30 years ago and had that mentality of going, I want to pay down the debt in 30 years, you'll have a house debt-free right now. And that would mean your total asset value of 1.05 million, and it would be debt-free, which is a fantastic position to be in. If we could go back 30 years ago, yeah, different story. However, if you had just gone out there and said, well, I will only go interest only, and the extra cash flow that I get, I'm gonna now save towards buying another home. The intention is that I want to build my machine, right? It's not that I want to be defensive. I want to go out there and aggressively build my wealth through real estate. So what you could have done is bought one property in year one, but then 10 years later, with all the cash flow that you could get, all the savings that you had as well, you go out and purchase another property at about 450,000. And you decided not to pay $1 down in debt. You would still have the same amount of debt that you started off with when you purchased the property. So assuming a 90% LVR, on the first property, you would be at about 315,000, and on the second property, you would have about $400,000. So in today's value, you would have a loan still existing for about $700,000. However, you now have two assets, and those two assets would now be worth about 2.1 million. So once you go ahead and said, I'm gonna sell everything, I wanna now realize no debt in my position, I could go in example one to sell that one property. I end up with 1.05 million minus all of my costs. But when you go and do that with the two properties, you've got 2.1 million minus the debt, which is about 700K, makes it about 1.4, and that is still higher than the first option. By having purchased two properties, you would not only have earned more income, you've got two income streams with rent coming in, but you're also in a position where you've got more power of leverage if you decided to take that on. As I said in the beginning of this video, it's not a cookie cutter approach. You can't just say, well, okay, I want to go interest only, I want to go interest plus principal, and not really have a plan or strategy in place. Why are you going interest only? Why do you need the extra cash flow? Are you taking out equity from the first property to go again? And if the idea is to take out some equity to purchase again, well then effectively, aren't you just going back 2 steps every time you take 1 step forward? And what I mean by that is 1 step forward is you paying interest plus principal because you're paying down that principal. But say 12 months from now, that property's grown in value, you go, well, I want to buy again. Where are you going to get the funds from? You go back to the property and say, I want to take out some equity to go and purchase another property, but your debt goes up again. So on one hand, you're saying all year, what I'm going to do is every single month, I'm going to pay down the debt. I'm going to continue paying down the debt because I want to go principal plus interest. But the fact is, in 12 months time, when the property's gone up in value, you're just going to go in there, grab that equity anyway, and that means more debt next to your name. I hope that example made sense. Now I know right now borrowing capacities are getting smashed as the interest rates have been rising. So if you're interested in a video around how you can increase your borrowing capacity, definitely leave me a comment down below saying borrow with Ravi, and I'll be sure to make that video. Now, in my opinion, I love the power of leverage. It's the same way that if I decided to go to the shops, I could walk there and it takes me 45 minutes, or I could decide to get into my car and it takes me 5 minutes to drive there. I'm probably taking option 2, although I take my step counts very seriously these days. By using that vehicle, I'm able to be more efficient. And that's the same way as when you go out and build real estate portfolios. I want to use every dollar for the maximum value while still minimizing my risk and having the right team around me, whether that's my brokers, my accountants, my buyer's agents, and whatever else. What you want is a core team to be able to guide you through as we make our way towards financial freedom. As a reminder, I always say that financial freedom is such a great idea, but when you're actually executing, you need to distance the emotions from the logic. When you do this, that is when great things happen. Now, earlier in this video, I did mention a bonus tip as to how you can grow your portfolio even quicker. And one of the things that I learned was that after an interest-only period of about 5 years, which is what most banks will offer, you're led to believe that I have to now go interest plus principal. But but you can actually go out there, refinance your loan, and actually extend to go out and do another 5 years of interest only. In the short term, the cost of borrowing has increased. However, long term, if you look at the trends, you realize with inflation, every single dollar we spent 10 years ago was worth a lot more than it is today. And with that same belief is why I'm going and actively building my positions in real estate, and I'm leveraging it with the bank's help, because I believe the purchasing power of the dollar today is still higher than where it will be in 30 years. And in 30 years, when Coca-Cola cans are $16 and everyone's making an average salary of about $550,000, your loan of $500K isn't going to mean much. Just like it didn't when back then you were able to go out and purchase a property for $300K, the same property would be worth 3 times as much today. You could go out and sell that and still have money left over if you didn't pay a single dollar down in debt. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm not sure why not. And share this with someone that in your inner circle is stopping you from making that move, from making that first action that is going to be so important by buying real estate or actually going out and investing in your own education. If you need the help, there's a link in the description below to my buyer's agency, Search Property. And if you want to contact me directly, the pinned comments will have my email. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks, guys.